Stephen Mansfield, New York Times bestselling author and speaker.
Doug Tenaple, I'm the creator of Earthworm Jim.
Tweet Groups.
I'm Victor Dweck.
Joseph Carter, I'm the Mink Man.
This is Dave Baker from Forged in Fire.
This is Leah Morgan. I'm a comedian, and this is why you should never
Not ever.
Don't waste your time.
Oh, you really should.
listen to those darling, yummy Reverend and the Reprobate.
So here is part 2. Welcome to the Reverend and the Reprobate.
Yeah. Part 2 of the Winter Zone.
I think you've got them in there as the Reverend and the Reprobate Blizzard.
The Blizzard stories.
If you were watching last week, we interviewed Moody Malavi, and we did it right in the middle of Wintermageddon, Snowmageddon. It was right in the middle of the winter storms that happened in the North Texas area where we're from. Which prevented me from being in my house. We were 78 hours without power. We don't have a fireplace in the house, so my wife and I were living out of the back of her car as vagabonds, bouncing around. We were. So we would go during the day. We'd go and we'd help out people within the community that needed help, that were either members of our church or just people in the city. We'd help them out, or we were helping to coordinate places for other people to stay. But we did have Houston Legg and Mackenzie Best, who are great friends of ours, allowed us to stay at their place. Well, on our night that we recorded, which is typically on Tuesday nights, my brother was gracious enough to let me set up shop in his garage. It was, like I said the last episode, it was -3 degrees in there. It was coldest I've been in Texas. And some of my friends from Canada were like, hey, it's warmer here than it is in Dallas. I was like, hey, shut up, all right, and apologize to me. So I am just totally geared up in jacket and toboggan and long johns and the whole nine. We to recap some of the stuff, we had some cables freeze, and in the middle of all of this madness, we got to interview one of the coolest and most long-tenured comics that's been around, the greatness of Jeff Allen.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's worked with Seinfeld and Rodney Dangerfield and Jeff Foxworthy, and those are some of the people that he had mentioned.
And he tells us a little bit about his testimony, like how he came to Christ and what that journey was like, and how comedy for him has changed since before he was a Christian, whenever he started doing it, to once he became a Christian. How the ebb and flow has happened with his family. He's actually been very public since the interview about his wife Tammy falling, breaking her wrist, and then he's taken her. She's actually driving. She's doing well now, and she's totally recovered from the surgery. And so, praise the Lord for that. And just talking to Jeff was so cool to me, because he is like this encyclopedia of comedy knowledge. He said he's been doing it for 4 decades. So it was an absolute blast of an interview. I am freezing during this thing. The audio quality is going to be all over the map. We might do a behind the scenes video on how we had to merge all of this stuff together, because it was a serious undertaking. In order to get this out for you guys. We are so thankful though to Jeff Allen for enduring all of this with us, for not giving up on us whenever we were in the middle of a crazy winter setup.
Yeah. I was going to say real quick that we probably would have postponed,
right?
Except that we were already lucky enough to get Jeff Allen and Moody on the same day, and it was like, oh, let's figure this out, because I don't want to risk not being able to talk to this guy.
Yeah, and Jeff's manager Lenny was great about getting us in on his schedule, but we had been waiting for months to get in on Jeff's schedule, and this was
he's
the
so
night
busy.
we could do
who
it.
knows? Yeah,
right. Yeah, who knows what it's going to be like from here on out? If we're going to be able to get him again, when it's going to be scheduled. I thought he was a great interview. He's got a lot of insight into manhood. It's awesome. We really hope that you guys like it. Thank you for enduring us through all the weird technical difficulties. We've got some great episodes that are going to be coming out that are crystal clear. But I will go ahead and tell you this: whether or not you start listening to this and you're having to fiddle with the audio in order to make it work, everything that this guy says is worth listening to. So if you can fight through it, we would really encourage you to do it, because Jeff was awesome. He's got great stuff out there. Make sure that you like, subscribe, ding the little bell so that you get notifications whenever new videos come out, and check out our interview with the greatness that is Jeff Allen. Rolling. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another interview from the Reverend and the Reprobate. We are joined today by one of the funniest comedians that I've heard in a long time, and not just one of the funniest guys, but one of the guys with the strongest testimony that I've heard in a while. I actually was first introduced to Jeff Allen, our guest today, by a friend of mine in our Celebrate Recovery group at our church, and we're just south of, and I'm actually friends with Tommy Nelson, who he credits with being part of what helped lead him to Christ. But ladies and gentlemen, if you would help me welcome the wonderful, the talented, the dashingly handsome Jeff Allen. How's it going, sir?
Yeah, the Christian Jerry Seinfeld.
Wow, I actually worked with him once. Yeah. He gave me the best advice I ever got. And I was sober. I was sober maybe 3 months. So I was a walking scab. I mean, I was a walking scab for about 8 years in recovery, but I was a big scab, and everything kind of picked at it. And, so anyway, we were waiting for our checks, and I was complaining a lot. And at one point, he goes, "Can I say something?" I said, "Absolutely, man." He said, "And all your complaints, and believe me, there's been a lot of them. I didn't hear you complain about how hard you work on your craft. He said, this is a small business. He goes, you get good at what you do, word travels. You'll never have to look for work." And he was pretty much right. You get good at what you do, the work does come to you in most cases. You don't have to do a lot of self-promotion.
And we've talked to a couple of
good
people.
Advice.
Yeah, we've talked to a couple of people that have had encounters with him.
He said, you're complaining about all those things you have no control over. And the first thing I said to him, "Are you in a 12-step program?" He goes, "No, that's common sense."
I got to tell you, Jeff, your Jerry Seinfeld impression is miles away from being ready.
Being good, I know. That's why I don't bother with him. My father had a great ear to mimic. My father, it was unbelievable. He had perfect pitch, and he could mimic with the best of them. And I didn't get any of that from him, none. But I was beating him in golf when I was 10, so I had other skills that he never developed.
Well, yeah, and that's got to count for something, right?
Well, my wife would tell you it counts for nothing, but my golf skill. Every year on April 15th, she goes, "Remind me again how much money you made playing golf last year." I go, "Not a nickel, baby, not a nickel."
But if it was fun, that's what counts.
I'm in the red every year, but it keeps me sane.
You've talked a lot in your comedy about your journey, but also what it's been like being a comedian. We've had a lot of comic guests that were on, a few that have had some similar stories to Seinfeld, that he's just a nice guy in person. You've been in the comedy game for a while. Who's been your favorite person to work with in comedy?
Oh, wow. I probably count on my hands in 40 years of the people that weren't, decent people, but, wow, I don't know, I remember when Glenn Beck called, his office called, I was blown away. I was a big fan of Glenn's, and, back in the day, when he started in the, and his morning show it was so funny and so poignant. He did a 12-week promotion. I don't remember numbers, so to say 12 weeks, I don't know. It was a long time. One joke ran for weeks, and it was hysterical, and it was poignant. It was I don't know if you remember Terry Schiavo down in Florida.
Oh yeah,
she was on life support.
Life support.
Her husband wanted it pulled, and their parents just wanted to take their daughter home and take care of her until she passed without the state intervening. Anyway, Glenn starts this promotion that if his listeners don't make his book #1 on Amazon, he's going to kill a puppy.
So hold on, just 1 minute. Glenn Beck was a comedian at some point, or he just made this one joke?
Hysterical. No, he's hysterical. If you listen to the radio show, he's a very funny guy. So anyway, he ran this joke out every day. We're not #1 yet, and you can hear him petting his puppy. So anyway, I guess he accumulated enough hate voicemails where people were going, "You should rot in hell. You should die. You should all this stuff for killing the puppy." Charmers. And he said not one complaint about what's going on in Florida with Terry Schiavo. Not one. They're pulling the plug on a human being. And not one of you people have complained about that. Anyway, that was his point. And that's when I fell in love with him. I said, man, one, I listened every day because I knew there was a punchline coming. There was something coming.
Right.
And I couldn't figure it out. Where was he going with this? Where was he going with it? And, he do things like if, the Maybach just came out, that's $140,000 and I have 12 million listeners. If you all send me a dime, I can get me a Maybach. What's a dime? What's a dime? Anyway, that's So anyway, I was a huge fan of his. And then I don't know if you know who David Barton is.
Yeah.
But David and I had worked together on a cruise ship, and his family kind of took me under their wing for a week. I didn't have anybody on board that was Tammy couldn't come with me. So anyway, they just took me in as part of their family, and we became pretty good friends. And then David started working with Glenn, and then Tammy kept looking at all the people that were surrounded by Glenn, and she said, you know too many of the same people. At some point, you're going to work with them, and I did. And his events were like Restoring Honor, Restoring Love, were just great weeks. That I really it fed my soul on so many levels. And anyway, that was probably, if I had a pick out of all the years, that was a good couple of weeks that were really good. And it's nice when you can meet people that you respect from a distance, and then you meet them up close, and they exceed class and just he earned my respect. He's just a really good man.
You've been in the industry for a while now. How many years?
1978. So 43.
40. Yeah.
It'll be November. It'll be 43.
So I got.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Thanksgiving night, I got hammered at my parents' house and crawled up on stage.
Okay. Forget my question. Tell me how you got into comedy.
Well, I got to go back to my brother was a musician, and he was playing in a club in Chicago Heights where we grew up, and a comic team, O'Brien and Severo, went up, and I watched them work that room and kill, and I just, from that moment, it was like, I got to figure out how to do this. I was 16, and anyway, I went to college, but dropped out, and got back, and I was working for a company, and we were doing a jewelry show by O'Hare Airport, and somebody said, hey, let's go to this new place called a Comedy Cottage. I go, what's that? And they said, it's a place where comedians go up and do, and I thought, wow, this is great. So that was like August. So it took me till November. I was there every night of the week watching. I wanted to go up so bad. I just didn't have the courage. And I had done some close-up magic and at college, and I learned enough sleight of hand stuff to get a few bar jobs in Chicago, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. So anyway, I finally worked the courage to go up, and I was trying to do magic. I was so nervous. I was dropping coins on the floor. I was just
rubber chickens everywhere. And
it was a nightmare. And every comic in the building came out to watch because they've been watching me for 3 months. They knew I wanted to get up. They knew I did.
Yeah.
So that was it. So that was Thursday night. So Sunday night I go back for open mic. And to tell you the truth, I went home in a flurry of tears. I was humiliated, drunk, humiliated. And a lot of my life at that point was just, rinse, wash, repeat, shame, humiliation, punch a wall, and then go back and climb into fire. So anyway, I'll go back Sunday for open mic night. And the big black MC came over to me and he says, Orlando, I'll never forget Orlando. He goes, man, we like you. We really do. But you're going to have to make some sense tonight. We're still trying to figure out what you said Thursday night.
So starting in August, you said you went up over and over and over and over bombing. How long did it take?
I started going to the club in August, but I didn't get on stage until November. I worked the courage up or drank the courage up, whatever that is. And then I was hooked. And I was bad. Terrible stage fright. I mean, I would walk up, look at the crowd, and run off. Wouldn't say a word. So the MCs could never leave the building. They couldn't even go to the bathroom until they knew I was at least going to get in. And I didn't know comics wrote things. I just thought they talked about their day. And I saw
they just get up and start.
Well, that was it. I'd go, hey, it worked today. The jerk in whatever county said something, and it was just off on bombing. And I saw a guy writing some stuff into a notebook. I go, what are you doing? He goes, I'm getting my set ready. I go, you prepare this stuff? Yeah, it was. You talk about not knowing. I could have probably done better if we had a class or something. But anyway, the first joke I did that got a laugh, I stole from a comic named Tom Dreesen in Chicago. A guy that did really well. 50 Tonight shows. He toured with Sinatra for years. And anyway, Tom had a joke, and I repeated it, and I stole it, and it got a laugh. And then I knew right from that moment that it was my material. I could get laughs if I just had better material. And the first joke I did that was mine, first routine, came from an honest evening of angst. I had a VW Bug that kept breaking down, and I ended up breaking down about a half mile from the club, and I came running a half mile into the club. I barely made my show, and I ran up on the stage, and for the first time, I was distracted enough to not be full of stage fright. And I just started railing on what a VW Bug was. What a piece of trash it was, and people were howling. They were just howling, and I realized it at some point. It's like when you're on a balance beam and you realize you're on a balance beam and you fall off. I just realized I'm getting laughs, and I just was like, wow, And so I realized it's angst, it's honesty for me. And anyway, I just tried to find some truths and stretch them a little bit, and that's the way I've worked ever since. I just, they call it coincidental comedy. Something happens, and you talk about it, and people relate to it. Jeff Foxworthy said something recently to me that was really, I never thought about it that way. He said, I went on stage one night and talked about something that happened at my house, and I realized that, hey, if it happens at my house, maybe it happens at enough people's homes where they can relate to it. And I have found that to be fairly true. That there's not a lot of we have a lot of commonality, and with a lot of things that draw us closer together than certainly pushes us apart.
Yeah, no doubt. That's been one of the crazy things I think about the pandemic that a lot of us have noticed is that every one of us is going through this very odd point in history together. And I think that's one of the reasons, speaking personally, that so many people have tuned to comedy and to people like you, especially because you speak the truth about what's going on right now. One of the things I really admire about your comedy is the way that you've continued to hone your craft when a lot of comedians and a lot of musicians, a lot of creative types just in general, when they get past their probably mid-30s, they really start to fall off. As they start to settle down, they lose some of their edge. They stop being funny. We've seen that happen with a lot of popular comics that have been in the limelight, have these great, huge careers, and then they kind of just bust and disappear off the scene. But you've been so steady with everything that you've been able to do. So how do you day-to-day hone in and keep that level of angst so high that you can continue to be funny?
Well, if you were married to the woman I was married to, you know what angst feels. No, I'm kidding. It's a joke. It's a joke. Don't send me an email. Don't send me an email. I gotta eat. I've never had enough money in the bank to coast, so it's always been kind of. And I'm enjoying myself more now than I ever have. And I don't know if it's just because I'm old enough to where, it's funny. I had 5 months off for the first time in my life because of this. And I won't call it a pandemic. When there's a 99.7% cure rate, it's hard for me to call it a pandemic. But they've certainly sold it. And I was off work for 5 months. And I went back to work and came home exhausted from the travel. 2 days. I was gone. I was exhausted. I looked at my wife and said, if I had the money, I'd quit tomorrow. And she said, you're serious? I go, I am, babe. I said, it's exhausting to just get on the planes, go to where you got to go, And but the beauty of it is, because of Dry Bar, I have I have a minor drawing power. I can draw enough people in the comedy clubs that are my audience, and I've never experienced that in my career. I've always just kind of gone in and even when I was working churches, the vast majority of people had never heard of me. So you spend those first 10 or 15 minutes letting them warm to you, and then you start pushing the envelope. Well, with my audience, I can get up and start pushing right away, and it's an amazing feeling after all those years of not having that I wanted more and more of it. And I realized after my social media guy called me, and we went through 40 years of video material in about a year and a half on Facebook. And he looks, he goes, I need more content. And I go, I can't produce it that fast. That's the one beauty of not being on HBO or Showtime or whatever. I didn't burn an hour and a half, 2 hours of stuff on that mass scale. Now, the Dry Bar, the first one, we're told it has over 100 million views. So people are already starting to post on Facebook. You got any new stuff? We're pulling stuff now. We just dug up, I don't know where my manager found it, but television shows I did in the 90s. And it's hysterical. I mean, the material's not so funny, but the clothing and the hair and I mean, my wife looked at me. She goes, "I would never marry you in that outfit. Why did I let you leave the house, let alone go on TV with something like that?"
Yeah, but did you have more hair at the time?
I had a pile of it, man. It was, I did. It's so funny reading the Facebook comments now. No, he's old now. They'll show a video from 1995. No, he's old now. He has no hair. Like I don't have any feelings at all. I don't know.
Moody Malavi, a comedian friend of ours, just told us that people who lose their hair lost it because of sin.
That is true.
That could be. I believe me. I'm not gonna deny that.
Yeah, mine's going, and I'm a pastor, so that's got to be very indicative of what's happening in my life.
And mine's here, and
concern my.
I'm the reprobate, so
yeah,
I think it's debunked. Yeah. It's debunked.
Sorry, Moody.
I love Moody. By the way, I love Moody. We used to do writing nights at my house.
Oh yeah.
Moody was part of that. So we miss those. I just haven't had a chance. Tammy, my son did a grandectomy on us, and that's where your child removes 2 grandchildren from your life and moves them to Montana.
Oh, that's terrible.
It was awful. Tammy, I'm telling you, she grieved it like a loss. I kept reminding her, the children aren't dead. They just are in Montana. She goes, they might as well be. My God, it's so far away. So anyway, matter of fact, she might be on the Alexa right now, talking to him. But she grieved it 6 weeks. I mean, it was awful. Every time the topic of those children came up, she'd start crying. And anyway, we just did. She didn't want to have anybody at the house, And so we're kind of 2 months into now. And I was just reaching out to him last week. I think I'm going to try to find a Monday. I used to do it Monday nights, but once a month we'd get together with comics in town here, and just really more for just support. And sometimes we'd produce some comedy, but it was more for just something about we live in the country, and I told Tammy years ago, I said, this must be where artists go to die. And what changed me, you asked me earlier, I go to acting class once a week, and I hang around young, creative kids, and they're all producing their own videos now. I mean, it's amazing the stuff these kids produce on an iPhone. It just blows me away. Really sharp stuff. And I'm working now to try to write some sketch comedy that I can produce for my social media pages, where I find a Facebook wife. Tammy doesn't want to do it, but just somebody we can do some funny arguments with and things like that, and break the fourth wall. That's what I want to do. I want to get into an argument and then look at the camera and explain what's going on inside my head while I'm in the middle of all of this.
That might help a lot of men, because just to know that we're not alone when we get into those arguments. We
right.
Yeah, we haven't had power at my house when I guess we lost it at 2 a.m. yesterday. So we're going.
Oh, Lord.
We're closing in on like hour 45 with no power.
Lord.
And my wife and I are having this conversation about what to do with the dogs, and I don't care. I don't care what we do with the dogs. Like, I think that the dogs should be warm. I love our dogs, but she went through like 6 different scenarios of what we can do with the dogs. I was like, just do the one that makes you happy. Whichever one of those is the one that will put a smile on your face and make me never have to hear about the other 5 scenarios. That's the one that I want you to pick.
Right.
But 30 minutes into the conversation, that was just not a good enough answer. And I would love if, for all of the world, there was somebody that could get into that argument and look at the screen and tell them all, he really means it. There's nothing like he doesn't care.
Well, it's funny you say that. We have 4 dogs, but my wife showed dogs for years. So anything dog, whatever she says, I don't have an opinion. I have none, and she's okay with that, you know. And the funny was, she's only got one arm, so I got to feed him. And I have not realized what I knew. My wife did everything around here, but I didn't realize what everything entailed until I had to start doing everything. And it's like, I don't care if there's dust on the floor. I really don't. I don't care if the counters are dirty. I you know,
it doesn't bother me.
But I know it bothers her. I mean, she is you know, so I'll catch her starting to do things, and I'll hear her screaming because of the pain. And I got, you know, you just stop doing things, you know. And the biggest problem we've had is trying to get her hair into a ponytail.
Oh yeah,
I'm telling you, it's with the bungee thing and the twists and the thing. I'm telling you, it's. I'm ready to hire. I'll spend $200, bring somebody in to put her hair in a ponytail. It's insane what we go through with the hair, you know. And she needs it. She has to get it out of the way. And it's just, you know, she goes, I'm just going to cut it off. I go, no, you're not. You know, I said, it's beautiful when we'll figure it out, babe. Yeah. I said, look, you know, I said, my 7-year-old granddaughter can put her hair in a ponytail. I'll figure it out. But right now, it's just awkward. That's all.
Yeah, you should try the vacuum trick.
Let me.
Have you seen the dads online that have the vacuum? Yeah, they take the vacuum and they take. There's a bunch of dads that are using shop vacs to do their little girls' hair, and they're just sucking it up in the shop vac, and they got the thing on the end, and they just whoop, done deal. Oh yeah, it works like a charm.
Oh my gosh! Well, today I was her other hand, so that kind of works. She got out of the bathtub, and she said, just be my other hand. And she started twirling her hair around and everything. And then I just kind of moved it around. She goes, look, it worked. I said, okay. You know, as long as you're happy, baby.
And we should clarify for our audience, this is because your wife had a broken wrist, because this was something we talked about in the pre-show, that Jeff's wife does have both arms. She just has a broken wrist right now, and he has to be
one is functional at the moment.
Yes.
Right. And the other one is not. She fell. I wasn't home. She fell over her slippers. She's been saying for years she's going to trip over my shoes and break something. And
my wife says that too.
I know. And when she said she tripped over shoes, I thought, oh my Lord. But I was on the road. I normally take my shoes with me.
So it wasn't my shoes.
Right. Well, you know, there's bad things, and then there's really, really bad things. Mm-hmm. And that was just a bad thing. So.
Well, real quick, let me get in here with the quick public service announcement on behalf of men to all women.
Here it goes.
In the world. Do not cut your hair. So you mentioned your wife was debating cutting instead of getting a ponytail. Women tend to, and this is something I've noticed, and I won't speak for all men here, but I will say I've noticed, when they get married, and especially when they have kids, they get this biological urge to cut their hair off. Don't do it. It's the urge. We love your hair long.
Yeah, it almost makes sense with the kids, because the kids are very grabby.
I get it. I get it, but still resist the urge.
Yeah, I trimmed my beard when my brother had my first nephew, because like the first couple of times, you know, when he's like 4 or 5 months old and he grabs the beard, it's like, oh, look, he's grabbing things. But at like 13 months old, when he gets a fistful of it and then turns and tries to walk off, I was like, you know what? This is gone. If I'm going to be around this child for the next 5 years of his life, this beard is gone.
Right.
So,
right, I understand that. Kids also have the tendency to break glasses, right? So when I
stop wearing glasses.
When I had my kid, I didn't stop wearing. I just got adjustable glasses.
Plastic.
Yeah,
right, plastic.
You pivot. Okay, you pivot. Right. You don't just delete it altogether. So hair is a challenge. It's gone. No. Keep the hair. Just pivot.
And I started drinking out of a sippy. Started drinking out of a sippy cup because they like to drop phones in glasses of liquid.
Yeah.
So,
man.
So I use a Yeti. I call it my sippy cup, but there's nothing that you can't put anything in it. So
it's a sippy cup for a man. And speaking of that, you have a lot of comedy. It is a lot of Jeff's comedy is if you haven't seen it, it centers around some of the generational gaps, and particularly in manhood. Let's just phrase it the way it is. Why is it that men are such sissies nowadays, and where do you see our opportunities to pick the mantle of manhood back up?
How do we boost our testosterone like 70%?
Well, it is interesting when they call manhood toxic. It's kind of it's the culture's against overt. It's interesting. I was putting together a book once, and I never wrote it, but it was on what I learned from my father about being a man, and a lot of it was really bad information. Like men drank a lot. Men can handle the liquor. It wasn't like moderation. It was, if you're going to drink a lot, learn how to handle it. But that was one of the core things about manhood. Men were angry. The sign of to be able to yell louder than the next guy, I guess, or throw a punch better than somebody. So a lot of it was counterproductive to being in a partnership with a woman, and I had to learn that raising my voice was not manly. It was abuse. It wasn't abusive, but it was. Yeah, I guess you could say that. It was so. But you're right. I see. A lot of it was. You talk about testosterone. That's something I just wrote. My granddaughter, the first time she mentioned my name, I got weepy eyed. And Tammy goes, "Oh Lord, maybe you should get tested for low T." So and anyway, I got tested, and they basically said you don't have low T, you have no T, none, and but I was elevated in estrogen. Is what they told me. I had no testosterone and elevated in estrogen, which explained all the HGTV I'd been watching. And here I thought that I was just losing my man card because I was tired of fighting her on what to watch, But she goes to bed at 9, so after 9 I can watch whatever I want to watch. So I just would sit there and watch all these, home garden shows, and but who knew it was a biological thing? I had no control. I had no control over it. The Bears are on Sunday. No way. Chip and Joanna got a special. I'm not missing that.
You got to figure out whether or not you're going to love it or list it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I it's funny, it's like the church has gotten, into defining manhood, and again, I was raised in the Marlboro generation, where men rode a horse, wore a cowboy hat. I can only speak because I've been married to the same woman for 35 years that the way I handled the early part of our marriage was not productive as a man. I like. I'll tell you the kind of men I was drawn to. My son had a karate teacher that was one of the kindest, gentlest souls you'd ever meet, who could rip out both of your lungs in about 4 seconds, and he would never use his strength to lord over another human being. I just don't see a lot of. I see a lot of apologizing for what comes natural to us. That's all. I got tired when I did my sitcom pilot. they asked me, when I went in for some pitches to studios, they said, what are you pitching? I said, look, it's a husband-wife sitcom, but I'm telling you, I'm a strong male and I can change a diaper. I'm not an idiot, and I'm not going to play the idiot. I'm not going to play the buffoon. I got tired of that, I changed diapers, and I didn't feel less of a man because I changed a diaper. My father would have. When my father saw me changing my son's diaper, he goes, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" He goes, "I never changed a diaper." And I go, "Yeah, and I didn't speak to you for the first 15 years of my life, So I wanted to do things differently, and anyway, I don't know. I don't even know if there was an answer in there for you. I know that we might have been looking for some humor with that, but
well, I think you definitely nailed the humor bit of it, and I think you got to the heart of some of the real stuff. I mean, this is what I don't know if you know Stephen Mansfield, but he's also in the Nashville area. It's one of the places that he does. He's got a few books on manhood, and one of the things that he talks about specifically is that it doesn't make us any less of men because we do change diapers and we're taking care of women, and the proper way to approach a lot of those things is looking at it from a biblical context. That manhood is very, very different than what a lot of the examples are in the world, and that's just part of picking up the slack. And that kind of leads us into one of the big reasons I wanted to have you on our show is your journey, your testimony to becoming a Christian, and what that was like during a time whenever you were doing it. It seems like you were doing comedy full time whenever that happened.
Yeah.
And what that was like, and what was the catalyst and the turning point for you, and how's your comedy changed since? I guess those are the two big ones. How did you become a Christian, and how's your comedy changed since then?
Oh my Lord. I can tell you, I got sober. We got married in July of '86, and in July of '87, I got sober, and I had one day in September that I went out. I was 2 or 3 months white knuckling my way through sobriety. And here's a great story. I had met a guy in Boston. We were living in Boston, and I met a guy at a meeting, a 12-step meeting, and he gave me his card. He said, "If you ever need to talk, just give me a call." And I knew his story. No, he never told me his story. Other people told me. He was a comic who was very successful, millions of dollars, went through it all. And he was getting coke delivered to his house. So he never had to leave the house. Months, never left the house. Just had coke, food, everything delivered to his house. And anyway, lost it all. Lost everything. Had a couple of clubs that he owned that lost all of those. And when I met him, he was one of the happiest people I'd ever met. And I thought, my Lord, if I had lost everything he had lost, the last thing I'd be would be happy. So that attracted me. And he told me it was the program, it was all of this, a new life. And he gave me his card. So that was August. So September, I'm in Memphis, and one of my old coke buddies came up to me and said, I'm again white knuckling my way. And he says, "You want to go out?" And I go, "Absolutely." I didn't even hesitate. So we went out and partied. And I had about a little over, maybe a gram left of coke. I went back to my room about 2 or 3 in the morning. And anyway, I'm chopping up the coke with my driver's license. And this guy's phone number, the card, falls off my license into the coke. So I'm looking at this guy from the program laying in my cocaine. And anyway, I called him up at 3 in the morning. And he says, "What are you doing now?" I says, "Well, I'm getting ready to finish up the coke for the party, man. But I don't want to. I'm done. I can't stand it." And he said, "Well, if you're serious, you'll flush the coke." So anyway, I go and I flush the coke, and I come back, and I said, "Okay, now what do I do?" He goes, "You flush the coke." I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Wow, you're the first." He goes, "You really flushed it?" And I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh my God, that's
you should not have done that."
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure. But anyway, he said, "Well, I'll tell you what. You don't sound like you're suicidal." I go, "I'm not, man. I'm just fed up with this. I really am. I'm tired." That saying is sick and tired of being sick and tired. So anyway, he said, "Tell you what. Here's the rules. Call me before you use next time." And we had a good relationship for about a year before I left Boston. But that was kind of the turning point for me. I kept hearing about God. There's no such thing as a coincidence, that God directs things. And when that number fell into the Coke off my driver's license, I had never given a guy another thought in a month. And then that one moment that falls, and I was an atheist, but I started to believe, I'm wondering if there really is something guiding us. And that kind of set me on my journey of books. I went, and everything for me, every turning point was connected to something I did or said to my wife that just devastated her. And I got into therapy because I stood on a stool one night and I yelled at her in the kitchen until she fell to her knees. And she broke down sobbing, and I put my kid to bed that night. He goes, "Daddy, you win." I go, "What do you mean I win?" He goes, "You yell, mommy cries, you win." And not one of my prouder moments. So anyway, I went to a meeting the next day and I said, I need some help therapeutically. And they sent me to a woman, and that helped. She put books in my hands. She said, "Maybe you should start reading. Have you ever read?" I go, "No, I don't read books. I don't read anything." So anyway, Road Less Traveled was the first book. And then I went through all the self-help stuff. And I eventually got into spirituality, which I hear so much about now, even with the church, which is like so mind-numbingly, vapid. But anyway, I was spiritual. I had a new age. I got into that Buddhism. It was funny. Buddhism, the whole thing is your desire, which is true. Tommy Nelson even talks about this. He goes, Buddha got it right all the way up to, it was not confessing to an outside source. It was all internal. But Buddha got it. I mean, your desires. Paul kept talking about dying to self, and that's what Buddhism is. You die to yourself, you die to your desires. And my joke was always, I just couldn't get rid of my desire to get rid of my desires. So that didn't work out for me. But I ended up on Ayn Rand. If I was not a believer, Bible-believing Christian, I would be an Ayn Rand. What do they call it? Objectivist is what she called her philosophy, objectivism. And as a matter of fact, I reread Atlas Shrugged probably 10 years ago. It was really one of the most profound books I read in the 90s. And I did a survey. We were living in Arizona, and I was being polled. I had gotten Tommy's tapes. I hadn't listened to them yet, but I was, and the readers of the Arizona Republic, they asked them, who are the most influential books in your life? And number one was the Bible, and number two was Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged.
Well, it takes 10 years to read that book. So
it takes a lot. Well, it's the second time. Yeah, it does. It's a long book, but it was one of those that I just couldn't put down. I mean, it was like it just, and I was really heavy into politics. I've been meaning to post a video on this because I see it so much now, and even with close friends of mine. I was miserable in the 90s, just miserable. And I was speaking at an AA function, and one of the guys, a comic, real gentle soul. He's like 6'7", just a kind, gentle soul. And I said, I'm so miserable, man. I just don't understand why. I mean, again, you look at the sheet, if the world tells you, I had a beautiful wife, I had healthy kids, I had a good job that I liked. Go down the checklist, and I had no reason to be miserable, but I was miserable. So he says, how much news do you watch? And this was before Fox. This was before anything. This was just CNN, C-SPAN, and headline news. And I said, not much, 7-8 hours a day. But then again, I was one of those drinkers. When I go to the doctor, how much do you drink? Not much. 12, 15, 18, 20. I don't know. I just drink till I pass out. But sometimes that's 15. Sometimes that's 30. I don't know. But so anyway, he said, I'll tell you what. He told me a great story. And he said he was in South America. He's a backslidden Catholic, but the Pope was in town. And anyway, he goes, who doesn't want to see the Pope?
Right.
So he goes out there, and there's 250,000 people. And anyway, at one point, Pope says, let's pray. So 250,000 people get on their knees, and they pray. And he looked at me, this guy, and he said, one of the most profound moments of my life. He said, something moved in me that I had never felt before. It was amazing. And I went back to my room that night, and CNN covered the 30 or 40 protesters. So I realized that the camera is a very myopic, small circle the news director decides what part of our society they want to focus it on. And he said, from that day forward, I try to keep informed, but I don't spend a lot of time watching the news. And I shut it off when it just starts to get repetitive, like night after night. If there's a lot of gang shootings or something, there's no point in poisoning the poison of the world into your soul night after night after night. And he said, maybe you should just consider cutting back a little bit. And I never forgot that. And I did slow down and I did cut back. And there was a point where we're at a point in our marriage now where when we start snipping and sniping at each other, the first thing we ask ourselves is, how much are we watching? And how much are we listening to on the radio? And how much of the Bible are we bringing into our soul? And how much of pastors, because there's so many good pastors. I tell my kids all the time, I go, you have no idea the world you live in. You can pipe in the greatest minds this planet has into your home for as much as you can understand or take, and why choose to pipe the poison in all the time, So anyway, I wanted to post a video on that. I've never shared that publicly.
We'll post this video and it'll count.
Well, okay, yeah. Well, anyway, it's one of those things. It's just like I very good friends of ours, very dear friends of ours. They don't see the same world. They don't see the same political world that we do, and it got really testy over the last 2 or 3 years. And Tammy, I've heard Tammy on the phone 100 times with some of these people say, I'm not going to lose you as a friend over this. So let's just stop talking about it. It's not going to change anything, And that's what I said. Whatever followers I have on Facebook, 300-400, I don't know what it is. It's a lot, but not one of them ever asked my opinion on anything. I've never gotten anybody to reach out to me. Who you voting for? Why? Not one. Right. So that tells me all I need to know. These are people supposedly like me. So why would I do that? I mean, I don't understand it. But then again, there's comics that they want to focus on that. I never did it because I tried it in the 90s. I lost a lot of work. But I also realized you have to be diligent writing every day because the news cycle changes every day. Yeah. So if you want to be hip and on top of it, there's no shelf life to policy jokes.
Well, I've got a little point here too. There's a famous YouTube comedian. Really famous YouTuber. She does some comedy, but Jenna Marbles, which Lucas
really
knows. Yeah, I don't know if you've heard of this lady or not.
No,
but
I'm going to write it down right now.
But I have always thought she did something back when Trump first. When the presidential nomination was announced that Trump was had won. She did a video and she opened it up by saying, "Hey, look, I know what my role is here. I know what my job is, and it's not to say that the presidential, it's not really to comment on any of this. I just want to make you guys laugh and help distract you for a moment. So here's a video I'm doing of my 2 dogs getting married, and they did this whole wedding procession, and the one dog was in a veil and all this stuff. It was hysterical. And also I turned to my wife and I went, yeah, this is it. This is what we need comedians for, is to distract a little bit. I mean, obviously, the speaking truth to power, and there's a lot of that, but also to distract from some of the nonsense that's going on. You had mentioned bringing in some of the most brilliant minds. That's there too. Zig Ziglar talked about that a lot. I listened to him with the Automobile University and self-improvement and all that. Also comedy. I'm a big supporter of everything about that. I mean, almost every single night when I'm watching TV with my wife, and I'll put on. I'm watching Billions right now, which is a Showtime.
Oh, right.
Awesome. It's awesome. Yeah. She does not want it on when she's in the room, because she says, I just want something funny. I just want something funny to distract and relax and unwind. And I really think that's why comedians are so important, is to distract a little bit. I don't know if that's the right word. That sounds kind of negative.
No, that's perfect. When I do corporate shows, my opening line is always the same. I understand you've been in meetings and all of this, and this is an informative week. But I'll tell you the truth: if you learn anything from me tonight, you completely misunderstood it.
Yeah.
This is Pure fluff, Jack. Pure fluff.
Yeah.
It's not going to change anybody's life. But I realized at some point that I started watching comedy when COVID hit. When I realized I was going to be home for a few months, I started watching comics, and I never watch comics just because I don't want to cross bits or something if I'm working on something. And anyway, I found some. And again, I started going to Zanies on Monday nights for open mic nights. They have a lot of local headliners, that people who live here, Nate Bargatze and
who's Nate Bargatze?
Theo.
I've never heard of her.
Yeah. So anyway, I had never.
He loves Nate. Don't listen to him.
I'm a huge.
I
Nate
know.
Fan.
Well, it's funny because I became one. I didn't know who he was, and then they introduced him as, he's going to be doing Jimmy Fallon the next night, and I went, what? And someone goes, that's Nate Bargatze. I go, who? I don't know who he is. And I felt so embarrassed, I left. I didn't even want to wait for him. And I went home and watched his Netflix special. I looked at Tammy and I go, I feel like such an ass. I didn't even know who he was. That's how little I watch, And right. I've been trying to get him out on the golf course. I keep inviting him, but he keeps blowing me off. But we'll get out there.
That's the same. We've tried to have him on the podcast, and he's blown us off too.
But what? I'm going to tell him. I'm going to tell him.
You should. Yeah.
Not that he listens to me. I tried to get him to book a show in Missoula. That's where I moved with my grandchildren.
Right.
I said, you're a big enough star. Why don't you get a date at that theater in Missoula and bring me along as your opener? And I said, here's how it works. You don't even have to pay me. I'll pay my own way up. Basically, I'll just come up, but it gives me a reason to deduct it on my taxes.
Just go open the curtain for him, huh?
Yeah. But just a funny, nice guy. And Theo Van is backstage. I never knew who he was.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the owner of the club told me, he goes, Theo sells his shows out in minutes. Mm-hmm. They put them out and they go. And I went, wow. So I started watching these guys, and they're just so good, man. They're so funny. And it does. It's a nice distraction, but it also there's a health benefit to the endorphins and all of that.
Yeah.
And I just find myself in a better frame of mind when I do watch the news and I see things that are upsetting. And it's the speech issue more than anything right now that scares me. I've always felt that, at least those things we'd be able to say what we want to say. And we can, again, like you said, there are people who speak truth to power. But now they're getting silenced and shut down, and they're getting their media accounts canceled and things. So it's be interesting. I wish George Carlin was still alive. I really do. He was kind of my go-to guy in the culture because he was never he never picked a team. He just pointed out hypocrisy. Mm-hmm. And a lot of his stuff is coming back in my feed. My manager keeps. I just bought his. Somebody produced a DVD set of everything he ever did, including audition sets and club sets, stuff he did in the clubs, getting ready for the HBO specials. And I've just been waiting like months because I want to digest the whole thing. I don't want to just watch a DVD and then put it down for 3 weeks. So I might start traveling again with a DVD player.
You can watch all of it.
I know.
Yeah,
so the technology, awesome. The technology is. I wish they digitized it. They might have. I'd have to buy it again. But
so with Carlin gone, who are the most important comedians that you think are speaking truth to power?
Well, I don't know if they're important, but I see Bill Burr is one of my favorite. Again, I lived in Boston. I loved Boston. If I didn't have all the demons with the alcohol and the drugs, I would have lived there. But I just couldn't stick around and stay sober. But Bill Burr, I don't know where I saw him first, but he cracked me up. Just
yelling at somebody somewhere,
just screaming. Yeah, just about everything. There's no sacred cow. There's no team. Just again, hypocrisy. One of my favorite lines was when the San Diego Clipper owner, it was 87 years old, got caught for being a racist. And Burr goes, of course he's a racist. He's 87 years old. What did they think? I mean, he was around when Lincoln was, So anyway, I thought that's great, and then Chappelle, I got, I like his his courage, but I think it's a little one-sided for me. That's just my opinion. But again, where Carlin just kind of pointed out hypocrisy, and it seems that there's a slant to keep your social media accounts going and stuff. You can't point out some of the hypocrisy on one side of the aisle. That's just my observation. And again, from afar, I don't do that kind of stuff. I've written a couple of jokes, stories that I think are, I wrote them because I wanted to be able to introduce my faith in a comedy club. And I wanted to get in through a joke, through humor. And I wrote about church history. We started watching church history. And I said, even if you're an atheist, Christian church history is fascinating. And Tommy Nelson did about a 12 YouTube video series on church history, which blew me away when I listened to it. I just, again, I only know what I know. I became a believer at 40, and again, I thought Christians just got along because they had one common thing, and who knew, what the internal fighting we've had for centuries. But anyway, I tied it into, the Rome, the fish. I don't know. You may know this as a pastor. I didn't know it. Where the Christians were getting their heads lopped off, so they needed some kind of covert way to signal that they were a Christian. And somebody would draw half a fish in the sand with his sandal, and if the other guy completed the fish, then he knew he was talking to a fellow believer, and he could speak freely.
Yeah, the ictus is what that fish is called. Yep.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah. Anyway, and then I just came out and said, maybe those people who voted for Donald Trump need something like that.
they just draw an MA in the sand and they wait for the GA.
No, I said they like calling him the Orange Man. They call him the Orange Man. So if you voted for Trump, just carry a little orange in your pocket, like a halo or a cutie or something. And
that's better.
You meet somebody. You pull it out, and if he pulls his out, then you can talk about the Orange Man. And if they don't, you just peel it and eat it. And then they ask you, "What's with the orange?" Oh, I got scurvy. I'm just trying to keep ahead of it.
Yes. Since when is it illegal to like oranges?
Yeah, Bill, what's the deal there?
Right.
After soccer games, it's completely normal. Who cares?
Yeah. So anyway, that's like my one political story, but I only wrote it to introduce my faith, and then I talk about other parts of my story. And in the clubs, and it's funny to me why I feel so uncomfortable doing that. It's been set up by a culture that they consider it proselytizing if you talk about the most profound experience in your life is a conversion, is just a heart slaying by Jesus Christ, and that's considered proselytizing. But somebody else can stand up for 30 minutes and rail on and off about. Even Carlin did it at the end of his shows. He railed against our faith. And nobody had a problem with that. And I just find it to be hypocritical. I really do. That I can sit through anybody. I sat through Carlin railing. I disagreed with him, but I didn't not listen to him because of his belief or lack of faith or lack of belief or mocking of my faith. Right. My prayer was always, open his eyes, because it's there. If you can remove the scales, and it's not my job. I can't remove the scales, but he can.
Yeah, that's the truth.
Well, Jeff, man, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to talk to you about the depths of comedy and also your testimony. And we would just want to encourage all of our listeners to go make sure you check out Jeff Allen at Jeff Allen Comedy on Facebook. Look him up on YouTube. But we want to end this show. We call them. It's called Controlled Rowdiness. We actually got that from a friend of ours named Stephen Mansfield. And we ask 5 lightning questions that are not correlated in any way, and we just need you to answer them with the first thing that comes to your mind. And Danley's got our list of those.
I just want you to know
that
when I get under pressure, I use profanity. Just want you to know.
That's fine. My 2-year-old nephew has recorded all kinds of things that we use to cover up the profanity.
And each one of these questions has profanity in it, so you're good.
And when my son was in 4th grade, he cussed at his teacher under his breath, and she told us what he said. And I looked her in the eye, and I said, "I'd love to be able to look at you and tell you I had no idea where that child heard that language. We're trying. We're trying to be better adults. We were trying.
Yeah, so we all know where it comes from.
Yeah.
Same with me.
Okay.
My son punched a bully in the face a couple of years ago, and that reminded me of a story my mom tells when I hit a kid with a 2x4 when I was very young.
I like that,
protecting my younger brother. So
it happens.
It happens, I guess.
Yeah,
that's the point. Yeah, that's the point. Is that we do things, and there's just not a lot of grace anymore. You know?
All right.
So, well, there we go. Fire away.
Lightning questions. Here we go. Twitter just canceled you. What did you tweet?
Oh. Probably something about the Orange Man.
Yeah. What is something that you love but your spouse hates?
Golf. Yeah, golf. Yeah.
I have not gotten the golf bug yet. I'm sure it's coming.
I told her when we got married, I'll have one mistress. It'll be golf. And then 8 years into our marriage, she goes, "You were serious."
If you could bring back any show, what would you bring back?
Oh, I could tell you what movie I'd bring back. Blazing Saddles.
Oh, perfect
I
answer.
just showed that to my wife for the first time.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God! I took five dates in high school to see that movie.
Yeah,
I just kept dropping girls just to go see that movie. Because if I would have found a girl that wanted to see it 5 straight times, I'd have married her. That would have been it.
Well,
no, I don't want to. But the girls are, I don't want to see that again. Then I go, I don't want to take you out.
Yeah, sorry.
I want to. Yeah.
And it's not even the language; it's the fart scene that they don't like. They're all around the campfire. Yeah,
that's true. Tammy and I've had that argument for 35 years. I keep telling her, "Farts is funny, baby. Farts is funny."
More beans.
Yeah, more beans. But what they don't realize is that was the first one. That was Mel Brooks was the first one to do it. In a movie like that. Now, Rodney. I just watched Caddyshack on my way home from where was I last weekend? Shipshewana, Indiana, and I was driving home. And I always play Caddyshack when I drive at night, so I can keep me awake. And there was Rodney Dangerfield just ripping one at the country club. Man. So it makes me laugh every time. And I know it's coming, and I just laugh every time. So.
I just saw this. I think it was this weekend. I just saw for the first time the SNL skit where Bill Murray is the psychiatrist for Rodney Dangerfield. And it's basically just Rodney Dangerfield just doing his bits, doing all of his jokes, just keep talking, and Bill Murray just leaves. And it's
one of the
hysterical.
One of the classic Tonight shows, if you ever get a chance to see it, was with Rodney, and he was at the peak of his fame, and he sits down, and Johnny kept asking him about his health. How's your health, Rodney? He goes, I'm not there yet, Johnny. I'm not there yet. And he's just doing all of these one-liners. So how's your health? Not there yet. Not yet, Johnny. Not yet. So finally, after 4 times of asking him, and this just constant, just one after another one-liner, killing. Johnny says, so how's your health? He goes, oh, Johnny, let me tell you, my health. And the place just went nuts. It was like a ticker tape parade. They went nuts. Oh, man. It was just brilliant. I got a chance to see him once out in front of a club in New York, and he's holding court. He's got a tux on, so he came from some special event or something. And these 2 beautiful, beautiful young women walk up and go, oh, Mr. Dangerfield, would you sign? And he signs these things. They go, sure, Doll, sure. Anyway, after they sign, he goes, you want to go for a ride in my limo? And they look at him, they look at the limo and go, no, that's okay. And they walk away. and there's 6 of us out on the sidewalk. And Rodney looks at all of us, tugs his tie, and he goes, I gotta go, boys. I gotta go. Just classic. Man. Just classic.
Well, dude, you are so cool. I appreciate you coming on and chatting with us 2 morons.
I can't thank you enough. Anytime anybody's under 50 and they actually like what I do, it blows me away.
Comedy legend Jeffrey Flippin' Allen.
Yeah.
How about that, Danny?
That was amazing.
I think this is one of those, like, the epitome of two best friends interviewing guys that they have no business talking to.
Yeah.
Like this,
especially during conditions
down.
that we have no business can be.
Oh, yeah.
So I did want to ask you, how were you defrosting these cables?
Okay, so what was happening, and you guys will hear that the audio quality is not what our standard has been.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want to say that what we're doing is great, but it's not what our standard has been. And we're not dressed the same. We're on our typical set.
Yeah,
so
we're warm right now.
Yeah, this is being recorded after. What I was doing is I was running different cables in between. So what you guys don't see is that there are parts of the interview that I am leaving and coming back on.
Yeah.
To go, and I had cables that were set by my brother's fireplace to thaw out, and then I was coming back and putting them on. And what I found out was happening was because the cables have metal ends, right? And so as the metal ends were getting cold, and we were so cold outside that the MOSFETs inside the circuitry on the boards that we were using and the audio interfaces, that's what was getting cold. And whenever all the transfer of that cold was going through, we were having difficulty with the frozen cables that won't move and won't work, and now everything within them's become brittle. It was a miracle that we were able to get anything at all. But getting to talk to
a
Jeff,
lot of hard work on your end too.
Well, that's typical, Mr. Manager. So no,
you did a great job. You get a gold star.
Well, thanks, and thank you for being patient with all of that. Big thanks to Jeff Allen and Moody Malavi, who we found out after the interview know each other. That they get together on like the first Monday of every month, and they're part of a writing group that meets over at Jeff's house, which is really great. But I really loved Jeff's insights into not just like comedy, but when he was talking about the things that were really important in life and the way that his faith has really shaped the way that he does comedy, the way that he's doing church gigs now, but also the ebb and flow of everything. And specifically whenever he was talking about, we had this discussion, he said he's pitched sitcoms, he's, done comedy forever, he's acted in movies and things like that. But the big thing that has separated him from so many of his peers is that he has stayed in the game the entire time. He's never left, and all of his stuff consistently has been good. And we looked a little bit at, and we talked specifically about comedians who tend to have that big break, and then they don't have anything to be angry about anymore. They've like lost their connection with the real world. And so they'll have like one really good comedy special, and then they've got another one that's pretty good that comes out after that where they still have a little bit of that relatability. But then the next one down the road, like you might love them in movies and things now, but you don't really dig their stand-up as much because there's not the connection that you used to have. They don't have as much, to be angsty about. And he was like, yeah, well, I got to work to eat every week, so I got to stay upset. So, which I really loved. Man, it was just really cool to get to talk to somebody that was so down to earth. And I feel like at this point I'm just kind of gushing about Jeff Allen. But if you get the opportunity to follow him on Facebook, to look at some of the stuff that he's doing, especially when he talks about his testimony and being in recovery, and then, regaining his family because of his acceptance of Christ, it's absolutely incredible.
And his stand-up, too. On
my gosh,
on YouTube, he was on Huckabee, I want to say pretty recently.
Yeah.
It could have been a year ago or so, but that's still relatively recent.
Yep.
But a ton of content on YouTube and Facebook, and go check it out.
Yeah.
Super funny guy.
He's really funny. The last tour that he was on is called The America That I Grew Up In. There's loads of clips and stuff. He's got several dry bar comedy specials that are out there that you can check out on VidAngel, as well as his YouTube and Facebook channels. Make sure that you go give Jeff Allen a like, share him with your friends as much as is appropriate. And man, thank you guys for watching. Thanks for bearing with us. That's all I got.
Bye.
Yeah.
Love you.
Deuces.
Hey everybody, this is Jeff Allen, and my parents taught me when I was a young lad, if you have nothing nice to say about anybody, don't say anything. That's the Reverend and the Reprobate. That's all I'm saying. How do I turn it off?